Who is actually generating electricity? Are they selling it to a utility or to some data center somewhere? How is the money changing hands here? These are all good questions. I won't answer them in this video, but I will tell you how to answer them yourself. I'm Dazhong from Catalyst Cooperative, and this is the FERC Electric Quarterly Report, or EQR for short. It contains US electricity market transactions that were collected by federal regulators. In theory, you can download the data directly from the government, but in practice, that can be difficult to work with. So we cleaned it up a bit and republished it for free. In this video, I'll show you how to use it. We'll start with an example question: which solar providers have been selling the most electricity? Then we'll investigate it with this web interface here before jumping into some SQL-based analysis using DuckDB. Step one is to take stock of what data is available. We're on data.catalyst.coop. The link will be in the description. And searching for FERC EQR in this search bar gets us these tables. We have index pub. Pub is short for publication. This is about which price indices various sellers publish to at different points in time. We have the identity table. This is information about who each company is and their contacts for reporting all of this data to FERC. We have the contracts table. This is information about the contracts signed between electricity sellers and customers. That determines what transactions are allowed to take place. And then finally, we have the transactions table, information about the actual energy market transactions. That's what our question is about, so let's check it out. We'll have to pick an individual quarter here. And each one of these is fairly large, so it will take a second to load. I'll select here, and instead of clicking this preview button, I'll just switch to a new tab where I've preloaded this data, so we don't have to wait. Okay, the first thing we can see is that there's a lot of rows. There's 17 million rows here. Let's filter this down to only solar companies, so it's a bit more manageable. This is not a perfect way to do that, but if we just filter for solar being in the name, that'll get us pretty close, certainly enough for this demo. So we can apply that filter over here. Now we can see it's all solar data. We can see that in Q3 of 2013, there was about 10,000 individual solar transactions on the electricity markets in the US. That is most of the transactions. There will be a few exceptions. We'll link the documentation for FERC in the description. We can see the seller, the buyer. We can also see the amount of electricity that was bought and at what price, along with a bunch of other columns that you can see. They're explained in the sidebar over here on the left. Interestingly, if you look at the 2024 data, we can see that the solar transactions have jumped from about 10,000 in one quarter to nearly 3 million. So that's quite the jump. We can also export all this data directly to CSV if we want to use it in a spreadsheet program. So instead of just looking at it on your browser, you can click this export button. You'll notice that we limit individual CSV files to about 1 million rows, since that's about as big as Excel can handle. For smaller data sets like this one, it just comes as one CSV. If that's what you need for your work, great. Close this video, go do your thing. If you want to work with a bunch of quarters at once, though, or if you want to do some more complicated processing, you might want to access the data in a more programmatic way. I'll show you an example using DuckDB and SQL. We'll include links in the description to all the documentation, so installation and usage instructions if you want to follow along later. All right, so let's get started. We'll open up DuckDB in the terminal. It will look like this. And I'll just type out a query and explain it. This query took about 8 minutes to execute the first time, but subsequent queries should be fast, so this shouldn't be too painful. So let's give it a shot. So we'll start out with a select. That means we're querying some data. And we'll start with the seller company ID, FERC. This is an ID number for each company. And then we'll also add any value of seller company name. There can be many company names associated with one company ID, and we're including this company name just for our own readability. So we're just going to grab any random value, and that will be fine. We'll take the sum of the standardized quantity. We'll call that column just quantity. This is the total amount of electricity sold in megawatt hours. That's the standardized part. And we're summing across the whole seller company ID. And then we also have sum of the total transaction charge. Charge. Same idea, but this time we're looking at the total cost of the transaction. This includes the transmission costs as well as the generation costs. And then finally, we'll include year quarter. This is just the time frame, so we can see in each quarter for each company what are the totals of this quantity and charge values. We're going to grab it from s3.puddle.catalyst.coop. Puddle is the name of our broader project that sort of repackages much more data than just FERC EQR. We'll grab the FERC EQR subset of this data, take it from core underscore FERC EQR underscore transactions, and then we'll say star q3.park. That just means every single Q3 that we can get. We're comparing quarters sort of year over year because solar power can be so seasonal. And also so that we're not looking at the whole giant data set and spending even more time waiting for the query to return. And then we're going to filter this data a little bit with this where clause and say seller company name. The I here is case insensitive, so we don't have to worry about capital S versus lowercase s. And then we're saying like solar, this is just saying anything that has solar in the name, like before. And then we want to filter also for product name is energy. This is in contrast with other services that are also in this electricity market, such as capacity. Then we're going to do a group by. We're going to group by seller company, ID, FERC, and year quarter. This tells us, what are the identifiers of the groups we're summing over. And then finally, we're going to order by quantity ascending. So this just puts the highest sellers at the top. And if everything goes well, we should see some results in a few seconds. Great. And we can see some of the sort of greatest sellers of all time. In 2024 Q3, Appaloosa Solar sold 166 megawatt hours to someone over the course of the whole quarter. That's pretty useful, but you can't necessarily share this with your coworker who doesn't have DuckDB installed. Or you might want to take this data out as a CSV and pump it into your new favorite data analysis tool. So we can actually take this data and we can export it as CSV just by adding this copy to, then we could call it K3 solar.csv. And that will run the select again and pop a CSV file out for you. So That was just the tip of the iceberg of what you can do with DuckDB and the EQR data. Check out the links in the description for more resources. Remember that this data is only very lightly processed. We're constantly looking to improve it. If you have any ideas for improvements or just run into any issues with the data, we'd just love to know. You can file an issue on GitHub, link will be in the description, or just send us an email at hello@catalyst.coop. Both are great ways to reach us. Thanks for watching and enjoy poring over the EQR.